When I reflect on what was most helpful during my postpartum journey, it would have to be ready made meals. Even for someone like me who loves cooking, nothing brought me more relief than knowing that our meals were already taken care of, especially during those first 3 months post birth. And I want you to experience that relief. I'm a huge advocate for bringing as much ease as we possibly can into our postpartum period. My name is Kirsten, and I spend my days processing grief and healing while staying kind, cozy, and courageous. And today I'm going to be sharing 5 freezer meals to help birthing parents heal in their 4th trimester. It's really common for birthing parents to neglect their diet during their postpartum period. I mean, you're literally responsible for a newborn, not to mention the fact that you're recovering from pushing a baby out of your vagina. Eating is probably the last thing on your mind, but I cannot stress how important it is to find ways to prioritize eating. The energy we absorb from what we eat directly impacts our ability to regulate our emotions, which is pretty important when taking care of a newborn. And if you're breastfeeding, your milk supply is dependent on how much nutrition you're taking in. Your baby will not be able to eat if you don't eat. So how do we feed ourselves when we have no time or energy to cook? We cook while the baby is still cooking, aka during their last month in our bellies. We then freeze those meals and save them for later once the baby is born. The 5 recipes I share with you today are easy to make because, let's face it, there's only so much we can do 8 months pregnant. They are easy to eat. You basically just take them out of the freezer the night before and heat them up when you're ready to eat. And they cover nutrients that are really important for a birthing parent, especially during that first month after birth. Okay, let's get into it. Starting with breakfast. First up is congee. Congee's long cooking process of rice and broth makes it easy to digest, which helps support the tender digestive system after birth. When cooked in bone broth, congee also provides protein and collagen, which are important for tissue repair. And I like to add ginger, cilantro, and green onions to flavor my congee at the end, which helps reduce inflammation to help bodies recover post-pregnancy. I like to make a big batch of basic congee and then divide it into half so that I can make 2 variations. I usually like to saute mushrooms and add that to one half of the congee, and then I add shredded chicken to the other half. I like to freeze the congee into 1 serving portions so that I can easily microwave my breakfast in the morning. This way, I can just eat from the container, which also reduces dishes during your postpartum period. Next up is burritos. Burritos can be packed with lots of protein and leafy greens, covering a variety of necessary vitamins and minerals to help keep parents energized during postpartum. They can also be eaten with one hand, which is a huge plus when handling a newborn. I like to fill my burritos with seasoned rice and salsa chicken. To a pot with olive oil, I add cardamom pods, a couple soup cubes, and paprika. I then add rice, and once everything is well combined, I pour in water and add saffron and salt. And then cover the pot to cook. I make salsa chicken by slow cooking chicken breast, spinach, and a jar of salsa in an instant pot or slow cooker. If you're vegetarian, you can substitute the chicken for lentils. Once cooked, I season with cilantro, and then we're ready to wrap our burritos. To a wrap, I add a spread. I like to use hummus for extra protein. Then I add cheese, rice, salsa chicken, and greens. I used lettuce, but spinach or cabbage might freeze better. You can wrap the burrito individually in foil and then place the burritos together in a freezer-safe bag. And during postpartum, you can just take them out of the freezer the night before and toast them on a pan before digging in. Moving on from breakfast to side dishes, yachaejeon, a Korean vegetable pancake. This isn't a whole meal, but it's a great component to add to a meal to bulk it up or use as the base of a meal because it's full of delicious vegetables to help replenish nutrients post-birth. To save time chopping, I just food process a bunch of veggies: carrots, yellow onions, zucchini, sweet potatoes, green onions, mushrooms, whatever you have in the fridge. And then I add a Korean pancake mix along with basic seasoning like salt, gochugaru, sesame seeds, and jalapeno. I usually fry yachaejeon, but I didn't have the energy to when I was pregnant. So I just scooped them onto parchment paper, brushed them with sesame oil, and baked them at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes, flipping halfway. And then I stacked them in containers and froze. I recommend rebaking them with a little oil instead of heating them up in the microwave if you want them to be crispy. These worked great as a side dish for soup, or I would even add a couple in a bun as a burger. Or if you don't have time for a full meal, just pop a couple of these in your mouth to keep you satisfied. Now for lunches and dinners. First up is a pot pie, a great way to pack protein in a meal, which is so important for physical recovery post-birth. It's also such a warming comfort food, which feels like a hug for your belly. And we all know how much comfort we need post-birth. This pot pie uses a lot of shortcuts because what 8-month pregnant person is out here making pot pie from scratch?
I started by browning some beef in olive oil. I like to slice the block of beef before it goes into the pan to save me some time breaking the mince up later. I also like to leave the mince untouched for a few minutes so that the bottom side gets some really nice browning. If you move the mince around too much at the beginning, I've noticed it tends to get more grayish in color rather than brown. Once the mince was browned on one side, I broke it up and stirred to make sure every part got cooked. I then added some shawarma spice, salt, and pepper for seasoning. Once the mince was fully cooked, I scooped it up and set it aside. The mince left some delicious fat in the pot, so I cooked my veggies in there. I used my food processor to chop onions and bell peppers so that I wouldn't have to sit and do that by hand. And to these veggies, I added some Worcestershire sauce for umami and then added the mince back into the pot. I mixed it all together and then added some leftover beef gravy and mixed vegetables from a can and also some frozen spinach. I seasoned everything with some more salt and pepper and then transferred the mixture to foil pie trays. I then topped it off with store-bought pie crust. Yes, I know, I use store-bought pie crust from time to time. I poked some holes in the crust to allow excess steam to escape and then seasoned the crust with some oil and thyme.
I actually just covered the unbaked pie with cling film and popped it in the freezer. And then you can bake these from frozen at 375 for 60 to 70 minutes. And finally, we're gonna make vegan spaghetti bolognese featuring lentils, which help support a birthing parent's digestive fire as their bodies adjust postpartum.
This recipe is super easy, especially for how flavorful it is. I started by sauteing onions and then added some veggies and walnuts, which I pulsed in the food processor. I stirred this up until most of the water from the mixture evaporated, and then added in red lentils, vegetable stock that I made earlier that week, and oregano. I then blended some whole tomatoes from a can in the food processor to break them down, and added the tomatoes to the pot as well. I finally seasoned with salt and pepper and simmered this for an hour.
I like to freeze the bolognese, and once defrosted, I add it to boiled pasta when I'm ready to eat, because pasta can get quite soggy in the freezer. And that brings us to the end of this video. I really hope you try one of these 5 freezer meals and save them for your future postpartum self. Looking out for ourselves postpartum is essential to looking out for our babies. If you're interested in prioritizing self-care postpartum, I'm linking a self-care kit I made in the description below. And I'm also going to add a couple other videos here featuring other delicious freezer-friendly meals that would work postpartum. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!